Hello, and welcome back to the HSP Connection with me, Robbie Lee. This is where we share our stories, insights, and strategies to help fellow highly sensitive people navigate their own path to living a fulfilling and meaningful life. We're on a mission to reclaim the word sensitive and help the world see the strength in sensitivity. So today, as you may have noticed, I am without Philippa, but I am super happy to be joined by our guest today, Katie Whittier. Katie helps high sensory individuals heal their anxiety, pain, or self-doubt by training their nervous system so they can live with the ease and sovereignty they deserve. I love that word, sovereignty. And she's here to talk with us today about applied neurology and somatic healing. Katie, I'm so glad you're here and I'm so excited about this conversation.
Me too. This is great to be here. It's always lovely to see you.
You too. It's lovely. Wonderful. So, a little background into your story. I think you started off in politics, if I'm remembering correctly, and then for like some big name folks like
Yes.
Obama. We're just name
Yeah.
dropping a little bit here, right? And then you were a communications consultant for some big companies.
Mhm.
Then something happened that kind of changed the course of your life, like it happens for many of us. You had a bit of a mental breakdown, if
Oh,
yes.
yeah. A big
Yeah.
one.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, we're saying that kind of lightly, but we've both been through it and we know like it is very impactful. And you, like many of us, you kept trying to, you kept, it's just like, well, I will try to find a way to keep going anyway. Then you received a diagnosis that I think really changed the course of your life. Would you mind telling us kind of what happened and how you got to where you are here?
Oh, yeah. So go back in time 4 years, right? It was about a month before all of the pandemic lockdowns happened. And I had just been through one of the more stressful periods in my life. Like the strange thing is it definitely wasn't my most stressful period, but that's the thing about stress is it bottles up and it compounds. And then all of
Yeah.
a sudden things that felt like, oh, of course, this is something that I can do become impossible. But
Yes.
regardless, it was still an immense amount of pressure that I had been forcing myself to live under. Like I got a new job. I had to sell my house in one state, find a house in another state. I was working in 4 offices across 3 cities in 2 states on a weekly basis. And I was commuting at train.
Wow.
So like I just wasn't sleeping, right? There was one night I slept 45 minutes and felt good about that. Like it
Oh
was
my gosh.
yes, yeah, it was intense. So it was kind of a classic recipe for a mental breakdown, being in a new city, having not a whole lot of a support network there. But in my mind, I think like many high achievers, it's like, this is just what it is. This is if I want to have a big career, if I want to be this career person, this super successful person, I'm just going to have to weather this. And I couldn't.
Yeah.
Lo and behold, it was just too much. And so February of 2020, my brain decided to shut down. That's the best way that I can describe it 4 years
Yes.
on. I was in the middle of a meeting, and it was a hard meeting where I had a lot of questions. And knowing myself now, I had to ask those questions, right? And I had been told before not to ask questions. So I knew I was in this serious conflict situation where I was asking questions when I wasn't supposed to be, but also I needed information.
Mhm.
And my brain just shut down. It felt like something exploded. And I know that's a
Oh,
terrible metaphor to have your brain explode, but something felt like a buzzing sensation, and I was not the same person.
wow.
Um, it was bad.
Yeah.
So my boss, thankfully, after I told her what had happened, put me on a 3 week leave of absence. And in my mind, I'm like, 3 weeks. I haven't had 3 weeks off in forever. I can do so much in 3 weeks. I'm going to heal myself. I'm going to come back and be so energized. And it just didn't happen, right? Like I did some therapy, and I went to some concerts and I did some yoga, and all of these things were good, but you can't heal a broken brain in 3 weeks. You just
Right.
can't.
I mean, you are laughing. It is laughable now to look back at that, right? But in that moment, that feels really real. It's just like, oh, great. I've got 3 weeks off. We'll take bingo bango. We're going to take care of this and I'll be back in the saddle before you know it.
Right, right. I
Yeah.
just need rest. I just need rest.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it wasn't enough, obviously. But something important happened in those 3 weeks. I met with a therapist who said, have you ever considered that you might be an HSP? And I'm like, I don't know what that is.
Yeah.
And she said, I think you might be a highly sensitive person.
Mm.
And no offense to this audience, but I was really angry
Yeah.
with her doing that. Like, course I'm not sensitive. Like I have thick skin, I am
Mhm.
tough, I have this big career. There's no room for sensitivity in my life, right? Which should be
Yes.
the first wake up call that
Mm.
if
Mm.
this therapist can tell that I have some sensitive qualities, even though I'm trying to be this tough
Mm.
person, maybe something to listen to. So I did get the Elaine Aron book. I did read about
Uh-huh.
what it was, and this
Yeah.
did kick off the start of my healing journey. I just didn't really want to hear it, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
3 weeks later, I'm back at the office. I'm trying to make things work. I can tell from day one that I'm starting to drown
Mm.
again already, and that I'm on this fast track to whatever happens next.
Yeah.
And thank goodness the world shut down for a pandemic
Mm.
that week. I would not have made it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the pandemic, on the one hand, was really good. It was a stabilizing force for me to
Mm.
be alone in my house, to not have to commute, to not have to
Mm.
go to 4 offices in 3 cities and 2 states, right? Like
Yes.
suddenly I felt control over my life. On the other hand, it made me really comfortable with my bubble, right?
Mm.
As long as I had full control of my house and myself, I was okay with the world. So when the
Yeah.
world started opening back up again, I was terrified.
Yeah.
I'm like, there is no way I'm going back to normal because my normal had been so far outside of normal and so
Yes.
misaligned with who I am.
Yes.
And I started to get really angry with
Mm.
with the world. Like, why does the world want me to conform to something that I know for a fact will harm me? Like, I
Yes.
can't go back to this without seeing my role in how I had created that world for
Mm.
myself. So, I started my own business so that then I would never have to be told to go back to an office, right? I did some things to continue keeping my bubble as much as possible,
Mhm.
thinking that that is, again, all I needed was this
Yeah.
external way of living to keep me safe. And then last year, I needed to decide how to grow my business
Mm.
because the post pandemic economic gold rush was over and clients weren't coming through the door. And so I needed to figure out how to sell, how to hustle, right? And immediately was triggered into all of these old fears again of, being overwhelmed, of having a mental breakdown, of all of these things, and it kept completely blocking me.
Yeah.
So I knew something was different about me, right? I knew there was something left to heal. I didn't know what to do. And a woman reached out and hinted that perhaps I might be autistic.
Mhm.
And again, I had a similar reaction to this HSP mention 3 years earlier, and I was like, I can't be autistic. There's just no way. Like the number one thing that people think of when they think of autism is a lack of ability to communicate well. And it's like I communicate well. This is my entire business.
Yes. Yes.
How in the world can you say I'm autistic? So I did what a good autistic woman would do, and I read everything on the subject of autism and the autistic brain and what makes my brain different.
Mm.
And in the process, started to recognize so much of myself
Mm.
in what I was reading, and also started on a path of self compassion. Of if this
Mhm.
is true for me, then obviously I would have a mental breakdown when I pushed myself to that point. Obviously, my brain would not want me to continue on that career path with such high stress. There was just no
Yes.
way. So I sought an official diagnosis, and it was a year ago in April. So just about a year ago now, that I got my official diagnosis, and that was the turning point.
Mm.
Absolutely, at that point, it's like I am autistic, and I'm not, I'm not a little bit autistic. Like I am pretty squarely on that spectrum, and I want to live in a way that supports that instead
Mm.
of pretending that I can outrun it, right? Or outsmart it or whatever. I actually want to realign everything about my life around this diagnosis. I
Wow.
want to care for myself in that way. And the very first thing that meant was embracing my high sensitive nature.
Mm.
So that's been the journey, and that's where the healing is really too. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Wow. I mean, what a journey, first of all. And also so relatable. When someone is first tentatively saying, you think you might be highly sensitive? And you're like, there's no effing way I'm sensitive. But you see my life. And to me, that is a product of society, right? Like all these messages we get about what it means to be sensitive and what it means to be a high achiever and just all the messages, right? And you're like, well, there's no way that can't be. And then similarly, again, with autism, I think that we are so unaware of actually what it means to be autistic. Like the stuff that is out in the media is not at all the full spectrum of what that means. Um, and I'm just sitting here applauding your tenacity to be like, well, it is also like, as a true autistic woman, I just read everything about it. Like I love that.
True
But
to who I-
you at every point, like you were making these decisions, like something was driving you inside to really figure this out, right? And then at the piece that I just really felt that kerchunk was that self-compassion when you're like, okay, well, if this is who I am,
Yes.
okay, then let's design a life that actually works for me. I mean, that's giving me chill bumps. It's just huge. It's huge.
Yeah, that self-compassion piece is often cited for people like me who are diagnosed late in life, in my 40s. That self-compassion piece is just the biggest gift. There's a
Mhm.
lot of fear that comes with a diagnosis like autism or ADHD or autoimmune, all of these expressions that come up as a result of natural neurodiversity or natural responses to stress and trauma or
Yes.
both. That's
Yes.
the case
Yes.
often. The thing that you come away with, the gift of it, is you can look back and make sense of a bunch of things that didn't make sense before. Like, why did my first marriage fail? It's like, well, of course it failed. Of course it did. I was with a very neurotypical man and we couldn't understand each other no matter how hard we tried, right? Why were certain jobs completely hard for me where other people were very energized by that same experience. And I just wanted to be like that and make myself like that. It's like, oh, no, 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 no. I'm different. And the things that are going to give me energy are going to look different. So that self-compassion piece is just powerful. And I would tell people who suspect that they might be on the spectrum or suspect that they might have neurodivergence, to lean into that because the gift of that ability to forgive yourself and see yourself in a fresh and healthy light,
Mhm.
absolutely precious. Like it's worth it. It's really worth it.
Yes. Yeah, because it's like you see yourself in one lens, um, and we compare ourselves to what society keeps saying we are supposed to look like. And often we have all these internal struggles about trying to do that, and it in some facets failing at that. Externally, we might not be for a long time, like you, like very high achieving, but also internally, just like, I mean, 45 minutes of sleep a night. Wow, how are you functioning at all? Right. I mean,
Right.
at some point the body gives way. It just does. And then to be able to see that through the lens of like, oh God, well, this is how my brain is wired. No wonder this, no wonder that, no wonder my marriage was so hard. No wonder this part in no wonder my parents kept saying this to me. No wonder the teacher said this. It's like you said, it opens up this just whole world of self-compassion with lens with which you can look at yourself.
Yeah.
And that can be quite a journey too, I mean, they can stir up a lot of emotions for folks. Yeah.
Oh yeah. You have to
Yeah.
relive a lot of old memories, but
Yeah.
see them in a fresh light. But still there's so much there that starts to speak once you start looking.
Yes. Yes. So then, so it's only been a year since you had your diagnosis, and you have discovered some things about brain and healing that have really been helping. I'd love for you to share those with us.
Yeah. So one of the really, really cool things about being autistic is we tend to have a lot of deep special interests.
Mhm.
And part of my unmasking process when I got my autism diagnosis was to allow myself to follow those interests, no matter whether they would make me money, no matter whether I thought they were silly.
Mm.
And so I just continued with this brain interest, right? Not just reading about the autistic brain, but now I want to know about all brains and I want to know about full on nervous systems and all this stuff.
Yeah.
And fast forward, here we are a year later, and I do some communications PR with my business, yes, but the bulk of my business has now turned towards helping people rehabilitate their nervous systems, right? So
Oh,
now there's
wow.
this
Yes.
healing space where, like, I come from politics, I've done campaigns, I've done, media relations, like all these externally focused things, and now I'm
Yeah.
working on the insides of people.
Wow. I mean, what a 180, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally
Yeah.
different life and so rewarding. Like
Mm,
I see, I'm lucky that the applied neurology, which is the modality that I use, you can see almost instantaneous results in the way that clients' faces light up when they notice that they just had a conversation with their nervous system and it went okay. Like
wow.
it's just here's my goosebumps. Like
Yes. Yes.
just powerful in a way that I'm sorry, communications PR never was.
Sure. Sure. So
Yeah.
this is something more aligned with you, is what I'm hearing. Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, it's been fundamental to my own healing and now being able to offer that to other people. And I'm continuing to deepen this education. I mean, it's only been a year and nervous systems happen to be really, really intensive. So I'm in a mentorship program. It's almost like an apprenticeship. And
Cool.
so like really, really intensive learning how nervous systems work, learning how to use what we call neuro tools, neuro drills
Hmm.
to work with people. It's just so deeply satisfying. And I notice the results with myself on a
Mm,
daily basis too, which makes it very easy to talk about and to encourage people to, try themselves because it's
sure.
just, I've tried so many different healing practices,
Yes.
everything from therapy to yoga to changing your diet, working out, all of the things.
Yes.
And yet, applied neurology feels like the only one that makes everything else possible. Without
Wow.
that, it really wasn't effective for me. Yeah.
I mean, that's a huge statement. Wow. So, what is it about applied neurology? What is it about like working with the brain that is so helpful for those of us who have nervous systems that need extra help? Like
Highly sensitive nervous systems.
highly sensitive nervous systems. Yeah.
So I'll back up a little bit, I think, and talk about the
Right.
larger type of modality that this falls under, and that's somatic healing.
Mm,
And for people who aren't familiar with even the word somatic, what it means is of the body or related to the body, particularly in contrast to of the mind. And
aha.
so a somatic healing practice is usually from the bottom up. We call them bottom up practices because what you're doing is using the wisdom of your body to influence change in your mind
Mm,
versus a top-down modality is using your mind to influence change in your body, behavior, habits, you know, addiction, and so forth. And
yes.
a good example of the difference is cognitive behavioral therapy,
Yeah.
psychotherapy, mindset coaching, affirmations,
Yeah.
right? These are all modalities that fall into that top-down, where you very much want your mind to determine your future, to manifest for
Yeah.
you what you want. Versus if you think yoga, tai chi, massage, acupuncture, even just a really good workout, right? These are the ways that you leverage the power of the rest of your neural network to influence your cognitive mind. Um, Scientifically, and I'm going to make this as unscientific
Thank you.
yeah,
Yes. And
but
approachable for us. Yes.
right.
Yes.
There is an 80-20%, 80%, 20% correlation with what happens between your body and your cognitive mind. About 20% of the time, if all is going well and you're not experiencing a ton of threat in your life, your cognitive mind is sending information down to your body about 20% of the time.
Okay.
And the rest, that 80% of the time, even when all is going well and you're not under a lot of threat, it's your body that's telling your cognitive mind what to do. So if people, and this is my experience too, feel like you have a really good therapy session or a really good mindset session, or you're making progress towards manifesting something in your life, but it's all top down, you inevitably run up against a block. It's like, what is
Yeah.
this block? Why am I not getting farther, or why am I not getting there faster?
Yes.
And that's because you're trickling 20% on a good day down into action, behavior, and habits. If you can bring your body online too, so coupling a good yoga practice with therapy,
Mm,
then you start to be able to open that conversation so that the other 80% of the time is also supporting your mind, and your body is willing to actually listen the 20% of the time that it gets that information. What is more typical, and especially for me, but I would say for a lot of highly sensitive people,
Yeah.
is that 80% of the time, that 80% stuff is only getting as far as the brainstem or the limbic system. So the back of the brain, this is the primitive stuff that we developed from lizards and from other mammals that are not human, but it's
Yep.
not making it all the way to the cognitive brain because something's triggering in the
Mhm.
back of the brain. And so your brainstem's like, I got it. I got it. I'm taking care of it. I don't even have to tell the prefrontal cortex what is happening right now because I've been here before. This is trauma based. This is threat. This is stress. This is overwhelm.
Mhm.
All of those things. And it sends action right back down into the body without giving your cognitive mind a chance to even know that you're acting, right? So this is why, like, a lot of people's diets fail, right? This is why a lot of people can't break addiction.
Mm.
It's because no matter what they try to institute in their life, the information, the cravings, the desire for stimulation is coming from the body, getting as far as the brainstem, and the brainstem's going, "Yep, cool. Let's open that bag of chips. Let's have the last brownie."
Oh my gosh, you are blowing my mind right now. The way you explain, I have never heard it explained that way. I get it. I know. I feel like I finally get it. Is what it is, the true experience that I'm having right now. I'm like, oh my gosh, wow, wow. Okay, so not only if we're going brain first,
Mhm.
not only is that only 20% on a freaking good day, but the messages that the 80% that are coming from the body aren't even getting to the part of the brain that can do anything with it helpfully. It's just going into auto mode and doing the the trauma based responses and that and the stress based responses. Am I getting that correctly?
Yep. If you're living
Yeah.
in a high threat state, if you have
Yeah.
trauma in your background that hasn't been resolved, you're
Yeah.
under a lot of pressure, you're not getting enough sleep, right? All of those things make
Mhm.
your back brain, your primitive brain, much
Yep.
more responsive.
Yep.
And so under those conditions, yeah, it's not to say your cognitive mind is never influencing your body. It's
Sure.
just so much harder. You have so much interference to get
Yep.
through before that message happens.
Hi, if you're enjoying listening to this podcast, have you thought about joining our HSP Connection community for more connection with other HSPs? Because really, us HSPs thrive in the community of others.
Absolutely. And Philip and I have created this space on an online platform where we can connect with each other deeply. We're going to have these awesome conversations, and we would love to get to know you over there in that space.
We would. So if you're interested and want to join straight away, there's a link in the show notes. And if you'd like to have a chat with either of us beforehand, please reach out. Now, back to the episode.
And oh my gosh, it really does explain, like you were talking about, like why things fail, right? That we're trying to do. And it's always such an opportunity to beat ourselves up and be like, oh, what's wrong? And really, it's because we're not really engaging our full system. Like we were fighting upstream, man. Like we were making it a lot harder on ourselves, is what it seems like I'm hearing.
Yeah. And so
Yeah.
you switch that equation, right? And you start working bottom up. And what the goal is, like a very, very good and I would say intentional yoga practice, it would be to influence that conversation. So open up more
Mhm.
channels between your cognitive mind and your brain. And I would say this is what makes applied neurology like particularly helpful is you're going directly to the nervous system to open up that conversation. I'm also a certified yoga instructor, but I can't say that I ever I never helped the communication between my prefrontal
Mhm.
cortex and the rest of my nervous system because I wasn't, I think, very intentional, or I
Mhm.
didn't know how to be
Didn't
intentional
know.
enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, to make that into the somatic healing that it could be. But that is, how to leverage a somatic practice is to make it as connected to what you're trying to process or work through or heal as you possibly can.
Mm. So I'm hearing connection. I'm hearing intentionality there, an intentional dialogue between
Yes.
the entire nervous system. So the head part and the body part. Is that
Yes.
right?
For the majority, or for the types of somatic practices that are not as closely related to healing. Now, there are somatic practices that are more closely, like EMDR, somatic experiencing. Those are more closely related to the psychosomatic experience of life, as well as applied neurology. Applied neurology, you can even you can heal emotions without having to name the emotion. Like, you don't have to go very deep because you're dealing directly with the nervous system. And actually, this is a really good point for HSPs, for highly sensitive people. If you go to a yoga class, that's 45 to 60 minutes. That is probably too much somatic information for our bodies to be able to hold. So part of it, we're going to dissociate at least part of that time. And maybe we just prefer to dissociate entirely, which was my experience, because it's just so overwhelming to be in the body. With applied neurology, it's the opposite. It's like, how little can you do to get a good result? And frankly, that might be half of the value of applied neurology is for high achievers like me, or highly sensitive people who, even a session of acupuncture could be way too much for the nervous system. We learn through applied neurology what are the limits of our nervous system, but more importantly, what's the minimum threshold? We call it minimum effective dose, the very least amount of work, effort, repetition, whatever you can do to get a good result. Not a great result, not an excellent result, just good. Yeah. So it's kind of like a total unlearning for a person like me of overachieving. More is better. This is just the opposite. It's like the days that I do too much, and I do, like, oh no, I did 50 minutes of this stuff over 4 little episodes in a day. And then, like, I will notice my sleep suffers. Wow. I will notice I'm getting too much interoceptive information from my body, right? It's like, okay, I will do 3 sessions totaling 30 minutes tomorrow, and it will feel right. Wow. Just tiny, tiny doses of this stuff, this practice makes a tremendous amount of difference, and half the learning is how to do less.
I'm recognizing that a large amount of this conversation, I'm just sitting here with my mouth open because you are saying things that are just blowing my mind in a wonderful way. I mean, yes, so the fact that, these practices aren't about, so here's how I'm going to say it, adding more trauma to our system, which it feels like some other things have been for me, right? I'm looking at this through my lens, and you're talking about like these small doses and ways that seem really to, obviously it's benefiting the nervous system. It's not there to overwhelm it with more stuff. It's there. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Oh, yeah. Incredible.
It is. And it's like so painfully simple. When I work with a client, usually in the first session, it's almost laughable what I send them out of the session to work on as homework. It's like, okay, I can literally do that like while I'm brushing my teeth. Like, just such a small amount. And that's also the goal, right? Start small and start building wins.
Yes.
And then your body, because the goal, if we back up, the goal is to create enough sense of safety that your brainstem gets out of the way. Like, your brainstem says, cool, the information that I am getting from my body is things are okay. So I'm going to pass on this sensation, this information from me onto the limbic system. Yeah. And the limbic system then evaluates it from a perspective of, am I loved? Am I accepted? It's that social piece. And so then, again, if your nervous system is communicating up that I am safe, like, even if I'm experiencing rejection, I am safe, I am okay, then your limbic system's like, cool, I'm going to pass it on to the insula, or, wherever else in the cortex is going to go. And suddenly you have conscious, cognitive control over what your reaction is going to be. It's just, it's transformational. I would say for a lot of neurodivergent people, bottom-up stuff is just so necessary to be grounding, because, and this has got to be true for HSPs, especially, like, we learn to dissociate really young, because the amount of sensory information that we're getting through our body is completely off the charts. And very few people know how to teach us how to not bottle that up, but actually to interpret it in any way that can be beneficial. It's just so much. So we learn to dissociate, live in our heads, over intellectualize everything. But it's not like the sensation is going away.
Right.
We just aren't conscious of it. So suddenly when we have conscious awareness of what it is and begin to learn how to interpreting it, like the amount of wisdom and self-healing, the ability to heal yourself come online because we are getting inherently so much intuition more than the average person.
Yes. Oh my God. Again, you're just blowing my mind. As I'm thinking about how much of my adult life I found myself saying and thinking I'm overwhelmed. And when I hear you, I'm just like, that was my nervous system on overwhelm, right? And wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that paired with that these changes are actually very accessible and very small. So it's not, it feels like the message from society about healing, health, any kind of change is that it's going to be hard. It's going to be painful.
Right.
It's going to be full of effort.
Right.
Like, those types of things. And that has definitely been my experience in a lot of arenas of health and healing, not all, but a lot. And this, you're like, no, small. and these small steps that sound like they build over time as we're reconnecting with our bodies and telling our brain that we're safe. Is that?
Yeah.
Yes.
That's absolutely true. And I mean, it kind of cheapens the whole thing to say that it's all easy, but it is. And the easiness is the point of it. But I would say the hard part about applied neurology, well, there's two. The first hard part is it does require regular practice. So even though it's tiny, it's like when I first started doing it, I was going about 15 minutes first thing in the morning, and that was it. And I could see some change, but the change was not fast enough for me. So when I actually then, it was just a couple months ago, broke it up, and I do about 12 minutes in the morning and then about 8 to 10 minutes other times a day. So I'm getting more frequent repetition with it. Then I started to notice really rapid and really deep change. So, there has to be some level of commitment to it, which is similar to any other healing practice. But it's really minimal. And most of what my trigger to know that it's time to do some more neuro tools is usually when I go to make another cup of tea. You have to wait for the water to boil. So it's a great time to do some neuro tools, right? So it's kind of naturally built into my day that way. But you do have to find a way to make it a normal part of your day. And you have to, there is time involved. Typically what they say with applied neurology is whatever the injury is that you're trying to heal, or whatever the, however long you've lived with the anxiety that you want to learn to manage, you need to plan a month of regular practice for every year that you've had it. So for me, it's like, oh, well, I'm pretty sure that I've had high anxiety for at least 30 years of my life. So 30 months. Okay, I got 30 months of this. I can do it.
When you said that, of course, I didn't do any math, but I'm just like, well, yeah, then I'll just be doing this the rest of my life. That's fine.
I could do it.
Sounds like it'll be good for me anyway. Yeah. And I, by no means did I mean to cheapen it by saying it was easy. Obviously it takes commitment and it takes doing the things for sure. Yes. But it just sounds very accessible and doable. Like it sounds, honestly, when you're talking about it, it sounds like the key to unlocking so many blocks that, we can face when we're trying to use other modalities.
That's totally true too. Like I would absolutely pair this with, and I do with my business practice, pair this with some top down stuff. Because I would say the second thing that is so hard about nervous system healing is your nervous system is like an onion. And so when you start to rehabilitate or bring back online one part of your nervous system, there's just other things that start popping up. And so it feels for a while like whack-a-mole, and you can get lost in it and be like, am I ever going to actually get better, without having a top-down practice that is also reiterating where the wins are happening. And even though you still feel lost in the moment, you still feel blocked or whatever, noticing that the blocks are different now. That does take that cognitive top-down coaching piece and or reflective journaling, whatever else, to measure that progress. It's super important. But you're correct that as your nervous system starts to feel safe, then other healing comes online for you. And I would say this is especially true for people who want a diet change, but can't stop craving sugar. It's like once you have your nervous system in a place where it doesn't feel like it's responding to threat all the time, it doesn't need as much sugar. It just literally doesn't need to fuel itself at that level. And it becomes much easier then to be like, I don't need to snack as much between meals, or my snacks just look different. They don't have to be high sugar. They can actually be nuts, or they can actually be a piece of fruit for the sugar rather than carbs, or I would say simple carbs, right? Yeah. So those things start to come online really well. For me, what I've noticed is it makes it easier to want to work out. It makes it easier to want, well, this is a big one. This is actually a really big one that I did not expect to come out of it. It makes it easier for me to want to connect socially. And I went into this, I'm a self-healer. I'm just going to, do all this myself and whatever. I don't necessarily want a social support system. I'm independent. I'm introverted. I've had a lot of trauma with extroversion and trying to make that who I was. Yes. So I didn't really want that. And then as my nervous system has come online for me, I noticed that I feel like I can engage people in an authentic way. So it's not as draining to have social interaction. And this is just mind blowing to me. People seek me out now because they want to be my friend. And it's like, I know what's happening. I know that there are people who want to co-regulate with me now, right? There is a higher frequency that my nervous system can put out there because it's in a safer space than it's been. So people aren't seeking me out because, they want to rehash how bad life is, those kind of trauma bonds that keep people together. It's more like people are like, I want to talk about something positive or the change that I want to make. And so like the quality of potential relationships that are showing up for me are totally different. And I did not want to heal my nervous system for this. Like I wanted to heal it for other things, but this has been a really exciting and unexpected side effect.
Wow. What an incredible side effect.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Again, you're just blowing my mind. So in a great way, this is incredible. It really sounds, and it makes sense. Like everything you're talking about, it makes sense because if your body is feeling safe and your system is not overwhelmed and you're able to show up more as authentically who you are, then it does feel easier to be with people. And then add to that, the types of people you're attracting feel better to be around. Like, right? Like all of that together. Oh, that's so yummy. That's great. Wow. Wow. Well, we didn't talk about this part ahead of time, and so feel free to pass and we'll edit it out. But I was wondering, is there like a little exercise you could share with the people who get to watch this on YouTube? Just a little, and listeners who aren't on YouTube, pop over there if you want to see this exercise. Is there something you can share with us that would, and feel free to pass if it's a no.
Yeah, I'll give you kind of a funny one that almost universally works.
All right.
Number one of the things you learned about nervous system training is everybody is really different. And so some things will be really triggering to some people and some things will work really well. But this one seems to be universally okay. But part of nervous system training is teaching you to recognize if something's good for your nervous system. So I'm going to skip that part and go straight to the drill. So again, minimum effective dose.
Yes.
If it feels triggering, if it feels like your heart rate is racing or your palms get sweaty, like done. You don't need to do it.
Yes. Listen to yourself, please. Yes.
This is tongue circles. It looks funny. So for those of you on YouTube, yay, you get to see this.
Fantastic.
And I'll try to describe it as best I can for the people who are listening. But what you'll do with tongue circles is you'll keep space between your teeth, but you're going to close your lips. And then your tongue is going to push into the back of your lips. And you're going to draw or paint big circles around your lips with your tongue, going first one direction and then the other. So we'll start, go ahead and close the mouth, tongue up, rotate around. Switch directions. And done. Pretty basic, but what you will probably hear on audio is my voice just dropped. And that is absolute certainty that I'm feeling safer, right? And my cadence is slower. If like you can see my nervous system in real time just went. Now it's taken me, I think I probably 6 months in started to notice those changes as rapidly as I notice them now. But 6 months is a blink of the eye when you really think about how long I lived without knowing anything about my nervous system. So tongue circles are great. There's a number of reasons why they're so great. Your tongue, its nerves directly link into the central part, the medulla of your brainstem. And so it's a cranial nerve exercise that is stimulating your brainstem immediately. And your brainstem's like, ooh, I'm getting information. And it's pleasant information, right? So you're getting that neurosafety in the moment. I love them because you can do them in the car when you're stuck in traffic. You can do them before you go into a meeting. You can do them in a bathroom stall, right? You can do them in public. They're just a little bit silly looking. Some people do, but yeah, it's just simple and it's great. And the more you do it, the more your brainstem starts to trust it and be like, yeah, this is fun. This is my thing. This is my drill. I feel safe now. And it becomes a tool that works even better over time.
Oh my gosh. I love that so much. And it's, again, very accessible, right?
Yeah.
So it's something that I'm hearing is these are what is the word I'm grabbing? It's like it's short. We're doing it for a short duration, but these things build over time. So with repetition and consistency, we're building that communication between the different parts of the nervous system.
Right. Your cognitive mind, that thing that makes magic, that thing that makes us human, that gives us presence, that gives us wisdom. We're getting the power that it deserves to actually influence your life, your body, your habits, your behaviors, your cravings, etc.
Incredible. Wow. Katie, this has been a phenomenal conversation. Thank you so much. Before we go today, is there anything you wanted to talk about that I haven't asked you about?
The only thing that I might add is, in my mind, so me being expert Katie, trauma causes a certain type of neurodivergence. It inherently sensitizes the nervous system. It is hard to find a neurodivergent person who hasn't also experienced trauma, but neurotypical people who go through trauma also have an alteration in their brain, as in trauma gets stuck in your nervous system as if it is still happening. So these bottom-up practices can be absolutely tremendous in trauma recovery. To that end, I have a video series that should be coming out in April, if all goes well. And it is basically how to turn your trauma responses, fight, flight, freeze, fawn, into post-traumatic growth. So I definitely encourage people to check out my website, Carapace, Carapace, Karapace.co, and watch for that video series to drop, because it's been one of the most, I owe you a lot of credit. You helped me get out of a writer's block a couple weeks ago, and then it just flowed out of me, which is a huge symbol to me that it's something the world wants, right?
100%.
For me. So keep an eye out for that. And if that speaks to you at all, it's a great way to get introduced to a little bit about how the nervous system works, to get acquainted with triggers, and also to start moving that into healing through basic neurosafety practices.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much. And listeners, all of Kara's info will be in the show notes. So if you missed that website, and plus there's other ways to connect with her, that'll be there in the show notes. So please do that. Kara, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so very much.
Yeah,
I just called you. Why did I call you Kara? Because you said Carapace. That's right. Katie, I know what your name is, but Katie, it's been an absolute pleasure, truly. Truly. And I'm looking forward to talking to you more about this offline. I know we will be. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
And so for today, that's bye from me, and it's bye from Katie.
See ya.
Thanks for listening to HSP Connection. If you've enjoyed listening, we'd love you to hit the follow or subscribe button, as this helps other people find us. And it also means you won't miss an episode.
Also, we'd really appreciate it if you could rate the podcast and share it with anyone you think might be interested. If you listen on Apple Podcasts, you can also leave us a review.
To get in touch with us, you can email us at hspconnectionpodcast@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you with your thoughts and comments on the episodes, as well as suggestions for future topics and guests.
We are both HSP coaches and speakers. And to find out more about Robbie, go to RobbieLeigh, LEIGH.com.
And to find out more about Philippa, go to boldhsp.com. See you next time.